Hello, and welcome to the Eyes of Life show. I am your host, Yolo Schubert. Today, we're going to talk about the Constitution. Some of the things I discovered in the Constitution while taking a good look at it is going to give you the understanding why I say, are we protected under the Constitution? Yes or no? In my eyes, my thoughts are, was the Constitution written for Blacks, Latinas? Yes or no? So today's show will be based on the Constitution was not written for Black and Brown people. So as we go into the Constitution today, let's take a good look at some of the things and how the Constitution became into an existing. So I'm going to be reading from my notes, letting you guys know what I took a look at and what I wrote down and jotted down. And I believe you're going to find it interesting and food for thought to make you wonder, is the laws really for us? Remember, we talked about policing last week. And this week, we're going to talk about the Constitution. So let's see if they actually do tie in together. So, before 1776, each state had its own constitution. After the Revolutionary War, the states joined together to create a federal government under the Article of the Confederation. What did the first constitution state? Hmm. We didn't even know there were more than one. Well, at least I didn't even know it was more than one. And if they taught this in school, somewhat must forgotten. What did the first Constitution say? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. That is all based on what first Constitution said. The first name for our country was United Colonies. And the change in 1776, on September 9th, 1776, was renamed by Congress the United States of America. So at first we were the United Colonies. Okay? So we were the United So at first we were the United Colonies before 1776. And for those that may not know what 1776 is, 1776 is when it's about the Revolutionary War, when America gained their independence from England. So on September 9th, 1776, this country was renamed the United States of America. Why do I say the Constitution is not for colored or Black folks? Let's take a good look. Let's look at it and see how we were written into the Constitution. Did the word slave, African, or African American get mentioned? Did they even think to say Hispanic, Mexican? Article Section 1. Article Section 1 acknowledged African American ancestors as 3/5 of a person. 3/5 of a person. So that means we are not completely human based on what the Constitution is saying. So if we are as 3/5 of a person, are you a whole human being? Yes or no? Under that same article in section 9, we are not mentioned as a race or identified as a slave, African, or Black. Not now. We are all called such persons. Even to this day, in that Constitution, this is how we are identified. We are identified as such persons. However, Article Section 2 now, Section 1, talks about the oath of the presidency. The oath the President of the United States must affirm or say before he or she takes office. Let's look at that. If the President is to uphold and to defend the Constitution, then no President of the United States has ever looked at us as Black people or African American. We have never been looked at like that because they're upholding the Constitution. And remember, we are considered as such persons. So when you look at it, and it says the president is to uphold and defend the Constitution, then no president of the United States has ever looked as Black or African American people as 100% human. Instead, we are just still 3/5 of a person. Here's another one. Let's talk about this article. Article Section 4, Section 2, Clause 3 is another, oh wow, mention in the Constitution is related to slaves in an indirect way by calling them persons. So now we done went from such persons to now persons in this article. Slaves who wanted to be free but couldn't. Instead, this section says, who shall flee? Who shall flee from justice? A person charged in any state with treason, felony, or other crimes. It was written 1787, September the 17th. On this date, it was ratified by the states on June 21st, 1788. So we have a few articles that have been written now. So I've been trying to figure out at one point, when are we going to be identified? I still have yet to see that part. In Article 5 was put into place just so at this time, the people we call our founding forefathers can keep importing slaves until 1808. So let's look at this. Although Article 1, Section 9 is banning importing, the important are, those founding father people, they are banning important people for labor in 1787, who we all know that really was Africans at this time, known as slaves, another one. But let's keep bringing them in for 20 more years. So they banned the trans slave, so they couldn't transport slaves across the water anymore. Okay. So if in 1787 they said, okay, you can't no longer go over in Africa and and do the transatlantic slave ships, let's transport them through the ocean over here, keep them on there for a few months. Now you can't do that no more as of 1787. This is what they said. However, we're going to let this keep going. We're going to put it into place, okay? But it ain't going to be actually put into effect until 1808. So, okay, you did it, but you didn't put it, you stated it, but you didn't put it into effect. So, okay, of course, they kept on transporting. We're going to still go over there and get it until the actual law is going to take place in 1808. That's what was done. That's what they did. So they kept bringing them over for 20 more years. 20 more years. That's a long time. You know how long it took me to get 20? 20 is a long time to keep bringing. So you know how many more thousands and thousands and thousands of slaves was transported within that 20-year time? So we can so they say we, but they kept getting rich from the backs, the broken backs of the slaves. Because see, they were making them rich. The more slaves you brought in, you were able to crop and produce more product. So they were able to continue to get rich off the back of us. So they wasn't trying to really stop bringing them over here. They wanted, hey, let's keep bringing them. But yet, where is this yet so far defending us? All right, let's talk about Article 4, Section 2. This was done on January 31st, 1865. Now, Article 4, Section 2 was ratified on December 6, 1865. This was passed by Congress. Okay? It was the 13th Amendment. And they always talk about, the 13th Amendment was setting us free. Yes. This amendment was to end slavery and abolish it. The 14th Amendment gave citizenship to all born in the United States. The 15th Amendment gave Black Americans the right to vote. So I say to you again, people, it gave us a right to vote. Okay, it said the people a right to vote. All Americans have the right to vote. But how are we getting the right to vote still? So you're giving still 3/5 of a person the right to vote. Because if you look at the Constitution, we are still never identified as a human being. I find that mind-boggling that all these years, this Constitution has been going on, but yet and still, nobody is showing that, hey, have we taken a look at this actual Constitution? Have we? I mean, let's go back and revise the Constitution and identify the Black race, the African American race. Let's try to identify that. I just find it mind-boggling that nobody ever thought to talk about Article 4, Section 2, Article 5, Article 4, the Section 2, Clause 3. Nobody ever talked about Article 2, Section 1. You have all these presidents that's going in there, and you are swearing on the Bible. You talk about this Constitution. You're swearing to uphold it. So if you're swearing to uphold the Constitution, and if you want to do it right, then you need to revise it. It needs to be revised. You wondering why the laws is not working for us? Because we still 3/5 of a person. It's for human beings. If we still have not been identified of everything we've done for this country, if it wouldn't been for our ancestors coming over here, breaking their backs, picking their tobacco, picking their cotton, picking their tobacco, and working in their fields, they would have never had the wealth that they had. So why couldn't we identify? And we're not even going to touch base on the monogamy of the enslavers going into the slave quarters. So I guess, okay, so we are 3/5 of a person, but we are 3/5 of a person outside of you wanting to have sexual activities and producing these mulatto babies. So once again, why haven't they actually revised this? Why haven't the Constitution been changed? We even had a black president, okay? Although they gave him a hard time, or they didn't want to approve anything that he wanted to get done. They fought him on everything. But yet they allowed him to become president. But yet and still, how can you stand there and say that Constitution, even as a black man, knowing that your race is not identified in there as 100% human? I don't think they really realize that as they're reading the Constitution, as they're uplifting it so much. Let's talk about this. The word slave, slavery, black indentured servants, forced to become slaves. These words were deliberately left out of the Constitution of the United States before the 13th Amendment, before the 14th Amendment, before the 15th Amendment was even written. The word slave, slavery, black, indentured servants, none of these words were written, because let's get this straight. Before slavery became a law, they were indentured servants. They weren't even slaves by then. That was put into law. So if it was put in the law, then why not put it in the Constitution? Why not identify the slave, slavery, black indentured servants? Why not identify them? You had every opportunity, but they deliberately left it out of the Constitution. I mean, the 13th Amendment, it was amended. They could have did it then, the 14th Amendment. Then they had the 15th Amendment when that was written. Still didn't do it. So why the thieves, and I call them thieves, this is what I call them. Why we call the founding fathers thieves? Because they stole it from the Native Americans. They stole it from the Native American people. This was their land. They are the only real people from this land. So, yes, I call them thieves because of that. They can write and create their own laws on how they wanted to run this country. Why couldn't they write these words if they thought what they were doing was justified and right? It is because they knew it wasn't right. Although the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment were written, the people of this great nation were still not ready to accept the Black race as humans. And if they were considered as people, then why did it take almost 200 years, 250 years for Black people to get their freedom? Let's ponder on that. So if we were human, because I consider myself a human being, I bleed red just like any other race out here. Everybody else bleeds red. Now, the first person that reads green or blue or orange or white, please, you know, make a spectacle of it, because we all want to know, what type of human are you? But everyone that I ever seen, regardless whether you're Black, Latina, Asian, Caucasian, it doesn't matter what your race is. We all bleed red. We all have the same color blood running through our veins. So, do I think they need to change that Constitution? Yes. I mean, you could store it away, you could put it up, but try doing a new one, because this country needs a new one. You have the race of your people. You call this the United States because you have multiple different nationalities here. You have multiple different races here. So identify it in your document. You had more than one race in the 1700s. You had more than one race in the 1800s. There was more than one race. Yes, there was. A lot of people don't know Vikings was here before Christopher Columbus. Um, Asian people were here. Do a little history on this country. Go back and see who was the first people. Actually, African Americans were here before Christopher Columbus. So once again, explain to me why it took them 250 years to set Black people free. It was about money. And they knew if they put anything about, oh, the Black race or African American or indigenous Native American, it was actually identifying what they did. It would actually tell them, it would tell on them. And I feel like it's wrong to continue to actually have any president stand up there and swear and honor this Constitution. I believe it's totally wrong. So why do we do it? Because we are not the ones that created it. We are not the ones that is identifying. And we really not even paying attention to the changes they are actually making, because we're thinking, oh, they're saying it's supposed to be making America better. But is it actually making America better? Is it helping us? Because it seemed like it's getting a little worse. So Why not do this change? I believe we should do it. The 13th Amendment, the United States found a constitutional solution to the issue of slavery. The 13th Amendment, along with the 14th and 15th Amendment, is one of the Civil War amendments that expanded the civil rights of Americans. So ponder on that, people. Ponder on it. And let me know what you think. When you look at these videos and you see these things, you go out and you get grabbed. You can Google the Constitution. You can go to different places and actually order a Constitution. You can buy a copy of what the Constitution says. And then you ask yourself when you buy it, is it for you? If you look like me, you ask it, is it for you? Because remember, when that Constitution was written, we were not considered human beings. We were considered three-fifths of a person. So that wasn't identity. That wasn't for us. So what do we do? What can we do to actually get a law, a constitution? What can be done to get it ratified and have the word African American put in there, people of color put in there? If you don't want to put Black, if you don't want to put African American, if you don't want to put Latina, Asian, since we are considered the minority race, just put people of color. That something. Give us some kind of identity. So we get a driver license and they ask you, can I see your identification? What do you put on your identification? Does it say African American? Does it say Black? Does it say other? Does it say Spanish? Does it say Caucasian? Does it say Asian? You are identified as a person on that driver's license. So why aren't we identified in the Constitution? I find that very upsetting that all these years, nobody ever thought about it. Nobody ever brought it or presented it. And if it's so, I'm quite sure Congress shut that down immediately. It didn't get no fun. It didn't even make it to the Capitol floor, I don't think. When it was presented to their right hand or the secretary, whoever it was presented to, it was no, we're not doing that. The Constitution is just fine. So let's try to get changes done for our country. Let's try to get changes done that's going to benefit everyone, not just a certain type of race, a certain type of people. Let's get changes done for everyone in this world. Everyone that sits here in the United States, that walks on the grounds, on the land of the United States of America. Let's force these changes. We were people at one point that will fight for our change, the things that we want. We need to get that back. We need to get those rights back that we so deserve. We deserve to be identified in that Constitution, because if it wasn't for our ancestors, there would be no United States of America. Well, I hope you enjoyed the YOLO show today, The Eyes of Life, and I hope you got something out of it. And I would like to say this: let this be food for thought for you. Get your children to start looking at certain things. Let them start looking at these educational programs. Put them games down, them Roblox and all these video games. This is why they are giving them out. This is why these children have them. This is why they're creating them as a distraction, so your child don't really know these things when they're being confronted by these so-called laws, these rights. They don't know. And we forgot to teach, and we've forgotten to educate, and we need to get back to that. So join me next week for my special guest, Zanai Bailey, as we talk about her lipstick products. Anya, she makes lip gloss. She's a young up and coming entrepreneur. She's 20 years old. Please join me next week as we talk to her about what made her want to become her own boss. I thank you for your time. I thank you for joining the Eyes of Life show. And everybody be safe and take care.